media-ers that I know. I can really keep up with his inspiration and his forward thinking and his desire to unite right along DreamWeek's vision. And why I was so wanting him to come here today is he's passionate about uniting people who maybe don't have the same viewpoints on things, maybe they don't always have the same religion, the same beliefs, but come together, talk about it, and at least hear what the other person has to say, maybe walk away not having changed what you believe, but understanding somebody else. And he's passionate about that in his life. So Chris, I'm so happy to know you, and you wrote, "This is the sacred moment." I think about this sometimes when I'm walking around. Think about your sign, and this is the sacred moment. It's a nice thought, so there you go.
Thank you, Sarah. You've been applauding, and she spoke first. A big hand for Sarah. I'm near the end. There's one more person. I'm watching all of these speakers, and I am just so humbled and honored to share this platform with you. And I am so humbled and honored that all of you have come here to share in these stories and these visions. And I love that this is a part of DreamWeek. And I love that DreamWeek is inspired ultimately by the dream of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Yes, you get the doctor. He hears it somewhere, I believe. I lived in Los Angeles during the LA riots in 1991, and there was just such anger and angst and violence and racial division. And I remember telling people, I'm from San Antonio. We get along in San Antonio. This doesn't really happen in San Antonio. And I love that the day of the march, that our MLK march is always one of the largest in the country, because San Antonio gets it in a big way. So the sign that I wrote, and I was so excited to be a part of Sarah's project, 1005 Faces. And when I heard that it's not only showing the diversity of San Antonio, but each person gets to say what their message is. What are you going to write? You got a few words. What are you going to write on a grease board? And I thought, I'm going to write, what have I learned in 5+ decades on the planet? What is my highest truth? If I had to tell people one thing I've learned, what is it? And I really believe, for me, this is the sacred moment. And it took me a while to get there, but I look back on my life, and I had inklings of this even as a little child. My father died when I was 4 years old, and I didn't even know him much at the age of 4 because he was serving in Vietnam. And so I maybe have 5 at the most memories of him growing up. But as I grew up, those memories were precious to me. They were sacred to me. And as I went through life, I learned the lesson again and again and again that even moments that we might think are mundane, they're really not. They're sacred. Enrique talked about divinity, and what is sacred suggests something divine. And I believe that we are sacred, divine beings. And when you think about all of the elements that came into place for you to be right here in this very moment, in any moment that you're in. You know, Dr. Carl Sagan, the astronomer, told us in the 1970s on the Cosmos series that we are star stuff. And we learned that in our bodies, in our cells, are the atoms of exploding stars from millions of years ago and from billions of years ago. For you to be here in this moment, stars had to explode billions of years ago. If you look at that just from a scientific point of view, that's sacred. Now you combine that with spirit, and I believe that spirit and science coalesce and they come together and they all mean the same thing, then it is certainly a sacred moment. So I think Carl Sagan really informed us of something special there. And I grew up in the 1960s. I was born in 1960. So when all the great music was happening in 1967 and 1968 and 1969, I grew up listening to that stuff as a kid on radio here in San Antonio. I was the youngest of 5 kids, so my older brother and my sisters would be listening to this great music. And along the lines of what Carl Sagan said, there was a song written by Joni Mitchell, and the song was called Woodstock. And it was made very, very popular by Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. And there's a lyric there that says, "We are stardust, we are golden, we are billion-year-old carbon, and we've got to get ourselves back to the garden." And I think about what the garden is. The garden is nature, and the garden is you. And you are a part of nature and the earth and the universe. You are the eyes and the ears and the consciousness of this earth, and the eyes and the ears and the consciousness of this universe. And you are proxies for God and for whatever your interpretation of God is. So when you think about that, if you're in a moment with anyone, if you're in line at DPS trying to get your driver's license and you're going, God, this sucks. When you think about it, you look, you breathe, and you feel your breath and the magic that is, and you look into the eyes of someone else who is in line with you, and maybe they're frying at that moment as well, but maybe you can share a very magical moment with them. You have the opportunity to remember that this is the sacred moment. And I think we're conditioned to either live in the future or live in the past. We're thinking about the future. What am I going to do next? Things are going to be better, or things are going to be really, really bad tomorrow or in the future. And then you're thinking about the past. Why didn't I do that? Why isn't that person I love still here on the planet? And I think when we do that, we lose touch with this sacred moment. And I think when we do get in touch with this sacred moment, going back to the 60s again, there was a book written by Richard Alpert, who went to India and became Ram Dass. And he wrote a book called Be Here Now, which really addressed being right here in the moment. Don't be in the future, don't be in the past. Give yourself to the moment right now and understand what is going on right now in the moment. And when you do that, you realize that everything is born in this very moment, in this now. It's not in the future, it's not in the past. All innovation, all connection, all magic, all bliss, and I love Joseph Campbell, don't get me started. All bliss and all love is right here, right now, in this sacred moment. And you always have the opportunity to become one with that and to be in touch with that. And I am just very, very blessed to be a part of this with Sarah and to be a part of this with all of you here in the room. And I thank you for sharing this sacred moment with me.